Rotorua tonight on City News. Bay of Plenty authorities agree that a united way forward is best for the region. ACT candidate Lyle Russell encourages voters to support Todd McClay. We find out why. And bells are ringing in town. The Seddon Memorial Town Clock Tower has been brought back to life after 30 years. On Friday, Bay of Plenty local government held their triennial agreement meeting in town, with the region's leaders agreeing to work together on a project led by the Chief Executive and governed by the Mayors and Chair of the region. Friday's meeting, chaired by Rotorua Mayor Steve Chadwick, saw collective authorities of the Bay of Plenty agreeing on a united way forward to best contribute to the long-term prosperity and well-being of the region and its communities. This involves reviewing options to enhance the efficiency and/or effectiveness of local government roles and functions, and developing options taking into account natural communities of interest, democracy and local leadership. It's expected the project's governance group and external project manager will be in place by the end of September, and the final report to partner councils for consideration available late March next year. New candidate Lyle Russell has encouraged voters to support Todd McClay's position of MP for Rotorua.
I'm putting my support behind Todd McClay because, and by also party voting ACT and supporting Todd McClay, will ensure that Todd's in the next government, and with him being in the next government, he can get more done for the people of Rotorua.
Mr Russell says national values and policies best align with ACT, and the party's existing relationship is strong and has worked well for the past 6 years.
It's all about cutting that red tape, being tough on crime and other different options. And for economic purposes, for those sort of values, the ACT Party and the National Party have got along very well for the last 6 years on that, and we can keep that going. And just with the concrete of our new leader, Jamie White, and the economic policies and the relationship we do currently have with National, we can keep the country's economy thriving, and there may be a few more downturns on the way. And with our partnership with the national government, we're hopefully going to bounce off those and keep heading on the up like we have done for the last 6 years. We have the full interview with Lyle Russell later in the show. And if you're in town and hear the sound of bells, don't be alarmed. It's the Westminster chimes in the tower of the Eyesight building. The Seddon Memorial Town Clock Tower has been brought back to life after 30 years. The Westminster chimes will sound every 15 minutes, with an hour bell also sounding on the hour. Getting the bells ringing has been the project for Rotorua District Council's Property Maintenance Officer Phil Hunt, who says that it's been a lot of work as everything had seized up, but he's really glad to hear the bells ringing again. The bells are currently running on a trial basis between the hours of 8:15 a.m. and 11 p.m. New Zealand telecommunications company Compass Communications recently asked people to nominate worthy individuals and not-for-profit organisations in Rotorua to receive 12 months of free, unlimited naked internet access. Linton Park Community Centre was one of the winners, with Compass being inundated with nominations for the centre via social media posts and emails in support of the organisation. The 12-month free package includes telephone and Wi-Fi services that Centre Manager Rick Mansell says will help reduce overhead costs.
So it means a great reduction in our overhead costs, which is always a very, very difficult thing for non-profit organizations that are trying to keep things for the community at reasonable prices. And we're doing that so far, but we're often worried about where we're going to get the money next month.
In sport tonight, it was a rough weekend for a few of our local teams, with Rotorua Boys High first 15 not strong enough against Hamilton Boys High. Boys High went down to Hamilton 34-8, putting Hamilton Boys into the top 4. And in round 3 of the Stanmead Cup, defending title holders Eastern Bay of Plenty were too good for Rotorua's Central Bay team. The defending champions were in control throughout the game and took a 34-10 advantage into the half-time break before holding the Rotorua representatives scoreless in the second spell, finishing with a 61-10 win against Central Bay. To your weather update now. It was a rainy start to spring today, with showers clearing tonight, an overnight low of 8. Tomorrow, Tuesday, becoming fine with light winds during the morning, a high of 15 and a low of 6. And looking out to Wednesday, mainly fine with light winds, a high of 16 and a low of 5. And the marine weather forecast for tomorrow, southeast 20 knots gradually easing, waves half a metre easing and becoming fine during the morning. Remember, for program listings or to watch City News again, visit our website tv.rotorua.co.nz. You can also see updates on our TV Rotorua Facebook page. Coming up on City News, we speak with Rawiri Daniels from First Union. Local artist Janet Keane talks to us about poetry and the Poetry Exhibition Week at the library. And we have the full interview with ACT candidate Lyle Russell.
Kia ora everybody, well I'm here at First Union now in Rotorua. We're going to learn a little bit about what First Union stands for and the mahi they do in the community. I'm joined now by Rawiri Daniels. Kia ora Rawiri.
Kia ora Kitty, lovely to be here, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us. Can you tell me a little bit of the background first with First Union?
Sure. First Union has been an amalgamation of 5 unions over the last 5 years particularly. Before we were called First Union, we were known as the National Distribution Union, and that covered workers in the retail sector, in the transport logistics, in timber, wood processing and forestry, and also clothing and textile and baking. But then in 2010 we had an amalgamation with the Finance Union, and they joined us as well, so we changed our name in October 2011. We're now known as First Union, so we cover also finance and commerce, retail now, transport and logistics, textile, clothing, baking, wood, forestry together.
Wow.
So we have a membership of about 27,000 members throughout New Zealand, and we're the second largest private sector union here in New Zealand.
And you personally, you look after the forestry and wood, is that right?
Correct. I've been involved with our union for the last 11 years, and I've recently just had a change of job title, but that's been interesting because we've got so much work that's going on in terms of forestry and raising the concerns that we have about the health and safety issues. And last year, particularly in 2013, was a very, very tough year for many families. Over 10 families lost family members, and there were a high number of people that were also seriously injured at work in forestry, because it's a very dangerous job. And because of that, we were successful with the Council of Trade Unions to ensure that we put forward an independent review, and we got a panel selected, and we wanted to make sure that the concerns that we have both in the union and on behalf of the families who have lost loved ones have been seriously looked at, and we need to look for change. And so at the moment, this review panel has been very successful in going out and talking to over 300 different contractors, workers, gangs, communities, to find out what their issues and concerns are, and then come back to put out a report by the end of this month, and that will be available to the public, and that will certainly show and shine some direction on what we should be doing going forward.
There's just been a recent prosecution of a young man who felled a tree while one of his friends was in the same area. What are your thoughts on that? What's happened there?
Yeah, look, that situation last year that happened was very unfortunate. It was unfortunate both for the person who felled the tree, but more particularly for the family who lost their loved son. Very deep concerns about why there are such accidents that can happen in such a highly populated work environment. The regulations that have been introduced are not widely and clearly understood, and there are lots of workers that don't actually fully know and understand what their obligations and things are. So it's pretty difficult. There's lots of different angles to this, both from the workers' perspective, from the families who have lost loved ones, and obviously from contractors and then principals who actually get the contractors to come in and start felling in the areas. So there's a need to try and get more awareness to both the workers and their families, to ensure that the union does have a role to play out there in the forestry, because without that, there's no real voice looking out for workers and their working conditions.
So, Rawiri, where can people get involved with the union if they want to?
All right, we've got an office based here in Rotorua. We're on Ranelagh Street, 1296 Ranulph Street, across the road from Spotlight and Lighting Direct, and straight underneath the radio station at Ranulph Street. We've got an 0800 number, and our 0800 number is 0800 863 477. We'd encourage you to either ring that number or even look for us online. We're at www.firstunion.org.nz, and if you've got any employment issues and queries, we'd be more than happy to answer those for you. We'd like to give advice, and we'd certainly like to represent people out there in the community. It's important that the community is represented, and would certainly do that for them.
Kia ora, Rawiri. Thank you very much for your time.
Kia ora, Kitty.
Kia ora.
Full moon tonight, cat's eyes loom above me. Ham for lunch, and so appears the devoted dog. Winter's end, the fat kereroo needs a diet plan. In case you lose your way, the fantail is always on track.
Beautiful haikus from local artist Janet King. Janet, what is a haiku?
A haiku is a three-lined poem, and it talks about a moment in time. And it's originally of Japanese derivation, and now what's happening is it's become very popular all over the world.
How did the haiku, or the style of this poetry, integrate into Western society?
Well, I think that a lot of people went over to Japan and they were associating with Japanese poets, and they loved the form so much that they brought it back to New Zealand and England, Australia, and they started writing it as well. And in fact, New Zealand has one of the strongest haiku followings in the world.
You've got an exhibition down here at the local library. Can you talk a little bit about what it is we're displaying, what it is we're coming down to see, and the theme of it all?
Well, I went to John Paul College and St Mary's Catholic School, and I ran a class with my photos, and I showed the photos to the pupils, and they responded to the photos, drew photos and did haiku in relation to their illustrations. And this is the third year in a row that I've done that with the school, and I decided this year that it would be great to have an exhibition. So this is what it's about, is the exhibition of their haiku with their illustrations that are in response to my photos.
How well did the students take to writing that style of poem?
The children at the start were a little bit hesitant, but once we got going, they really flowered, and we had them each producing about 5 haiku each, and they also had a performance in relation to it. So it started off slow, then it built, and then they were flying. So it was great.
So they got the concept of the poem quite well, because it's quite simple. It's so simple that it's almost hard to comprehend.
Well, it is quite hard to comprehend. In fact, I took a long while to comprehend it, but children are very receptive, and if you show something visually, show lots of examples, and are enthusiastic about it and are really accepting of whatever comes out, then that makes them feel quite satisfied and hopeful about it and willing to contribute.
You have got John Paul College on the wall, but you also have another school. What school is that?
That's St Mary's Catholic School. So that I did that with Lynley Schofield, and she's a literary expert. So we were talking about literary things really with the haiku, really about syllables. We did it in terms of syllables, because with the Japanese they have 5 syllables for the first line, 7 for the second, and 5 for the last line. So with St Mary's School we focused on that form for the poem.
How long is this exhibition going to be displayed for?
It's going to be on till Saturday the 12th of September.
Who else is getting involved in poetry in this town?
Well, there are the Mad Poets Society, and there are a lot of people, believe it or not, who are really into poetry in Rotorua. I was quite surprised. This is the 3rd year I've had an exhibition here, and I've asked people to contribute haiku in relation to what we have here into a box, and I end up getting hundreds of entries because people really resonate with haiku because it's so simple.
So there are so many styles of poetry, and one of the modern ones today is actually slam poetry. What are your views on slam poetry?
Well, I think slam poetry is really good because it's performance art and it engages quite often young people, and it's young people that you want to get involved in these things. And I say, if you can get out and project yourself and make up something that's poetic and creative, excellent. And I actually think that most songs are poetry. Most modern songs, even rap songs, are poetry.
Would you say that rap artists are the modern day Shakespeare's?
Yes, I would. I would say that rap artists are the modern day Shakespeare's. And it's good to embrace all sorts of different art because, life is about embracing things.
Janet, let's go and have a look at some of these things we're going to communicate. Let's go.
Excellent.
So if you'd like to come down to the Rotorua Public Library until the 12th of September, you'll be able to read a lot of the haikus that the local children have been putting up on the walls and even be inspired to write one yourself. Is that right, Janet?
Yes. I've got a competition going. Come down, write your own haiku, pop it in the box, and you could win, one lucky winner could win an animal photograph of mine.
Thank you so much for having us. I've seen those photographs and I might go pop one in the box myself, actually.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hanging out down at the government gardens behind me there is Lyle Russell playing croquet with the locals. We're going to pop over, have a chat with him to see what it's like to be him and why did he choose to run for ACT and be the candidate. So Lyle, tell us a little bit about you. Who are you?
Well, I was brought up in Rotorua, went to Rotorua College, and my parents have a sheep and beef farm out there, so we were raised on that. So just an ordinary sort of person, I've been to the US on a high school exchange and sort of had a chance to see what things are like overseas and do a few different things that not the average student would do, but it's all experience and it's just a lot of fun and it's just every day. Well,
now you're a politician. How did you get into that industry?
Oh, I don't know if politician is the right word. We got a while before you get there. Pretty much a few years ago, I've been studying politics and media studies down in Wellington, and I got the opportunity at the last campaign to meet John Banks, and he invited me along to volunteer at his Wellington office. So for the year 2012, I was in his office just seeing what really happens, how Parliament works. And one of the members from the ACT Party about a month and a half ago asked whether I had any interest, and I just thought, well, why say no, give it a shot, and here we are. Yeah.
Well, you're definitely a smart fellow.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, and now it sounded like that opportunity was just given to you. What was your focus? What did you want to be?
Well, my goal in life is to get into the media. My end goal is talk radio. That's something that I've always had a passion for, to inform and educate people, and that sort of media I find is the best. At the last election, I did a information afternoon here in Rotorua on the electoral system, pretty much just putting it out for people how the electoral systems work, but not actually telling them how to vote and that. So those are the things I like to do. So this role is really contradicting that. I find it very hard to tell people who to vote for and how to vote. So it's going to be quite a challenge there. So hopefully I can do a difference. I believe that the country is heading in the right direction, and hopefully this position will help concrete that after the next election and we can carry on.
Well, then why ACT? Why?
Well, ACT is the insurance policy of a national government. So if you look back since MMP, ACT has always been beside a national party's hand, on their side. So without ACT, there wouldn't have been a government. And under the MMP nature, if you want to govern alone, you need to get about 50% of the vote. And that just doesn't happen in New Zealand. The last time it happened was in 1951, and that was the national government got just over. And under MMP, you've got so many parties, it just fractures the vote. So the chance of it is very slim. So, giving ACT that security of being in Parliament secures a national government and also keeps the economics, which is very strong at this moment where the rest of the world is in a bit faulty. It's also going to keep the national government's economics on track.
Now, I read somewhere an interesting statement that you made about voting for one of the other electorates.
Well, the idea is in Rotorua, there's only really going to be a national or a Labour candidate that's going to get the chance to represent the wonderful people here. So I've taken it upon myself to say, well, there's really no point voting for me. I'm not going to win this electorate. I'm only going to be on the stage for 4 weeks because I've only been a candidate for a week now and the election's coming up. So I'm putting my support behind Todd McClay and by also party voting ACT and supporting Todd McClay will ensure that Todd's in the next government, and with him being in the next government he can get more done for the people of Rotorua.
That's a real interesting point of view you just made there. You said about supporting that particular party.
Yes.
Why not the other parties?
Well, they don't get along with ACT's values as well. ACT's values is all about freedom and the economic direction we want to go in. It's all about cutting that red tape, being tough on crime and other different options. And for economic purposes, for those sort of values, the ACT Party and the National Party have got along very well for the last 6 years on that, and we can keep that going. And just with the concrete of our new leader, Jamie White, and the economic policies and the relationship we do currently have with National, we can keep the country's economy thriving, and there may be a few more downturns on the way. And with our partnership with the national government, we're hopefully going to bounce off those and keep heading on the up like we have done for the last 6 years.
So what you're really telling me, and what I'm hearing from you, is that you really have some core beliefs behind it all. So to sum it up, what are your core beliefs?
Well, the idea is all about freedom. Okay, ACT's values is all about freedom, and the idea of a government is not to do for the people what the people should and can do for themselves. So those are sort of the values that we come from by being part of the ACT Party. So by getting behind the ACT Party and those values, we're going to keep everyone free, everyone the ability to strive and do what they want, and not being bogged down by regulations and different aspects that the government put upon us that just bogs us down a little.
Thank you so much for being here today, sharing a bit of your background and your beliefs, and it's been a pleasure to have you.
No worries. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
That was Melanie Grove speaking with ACT candidate Lyle Russell. You can hear more from all the local candidates at the Great Debate being held tomorrow morning at the Distinction Hotel. We'll have coverage from the debate running throughout the week. To watch the show again, visit tv.rotorua.co.nz. Thanks for joining us tonight. From all the team here at City News, for Maria.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.